Robin.
What a weird week. People just coming and going. Hopefully it sounds like something out there. We got Dave Atell kind of walking down the hall slowly, looking like he's going to break into someone's home. Jimmy's in the bathroom. And we got the Bill Hicks guys here. And I just got my Bill Hicks T-shirt. Which, thumbs up, yeah. You got to pull the mic down, sir. So who do we got in the studio? What's up, Jimmy? The Bill Hicks guys to your right.
I know. We're just coming back on.
It's Matt and Paul. And Dave Atell. What's up, Dave?
Just walking in, too.
How are you, sir?
What did I walk in on?
Well, we just came back from break.
We just got back, Dave, and we're going to talk to these guys who made a film about Bill Hicks. Did you know Bill Hicks?
Yes, I did.
You did?
I met him twice, and I saw him perform at the old Improv in New York City, and it was great because this was in the late 80s when hacks ruled the comedy world. Like, you needed a guitar or a puppet, and it's not like today where you just need, I guess...
dry irony.
Yeah, dry irony or a goddess. And today it was great because the club owner at the time was like, I don't get this guy. Get him off.
Really?
And then they brought out the next guy doing the clapper joke.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's what I got.
Who was the guy that didn't get Bill Hicks?
Tim Allen. No, I don't know. No, it was the club owner of the
How do you not get Bill Hicks? Did he make people uncomfortable?
Well, he was...
Because he wasn't like joke guy?
He was dark, and that was like, the late 80s. People didn't want that.
Right.
It was a different time.
And he probably didn't get him because if the crowd wasn't enjoying it, anything the crowd's not enjoying, the club owner won't enjoy it. But if the crowd was going crazy, then the club owner would have loved it. They don't care what the comic's doing, as long as the crowd likes it.
Well, he obviously was a very funny guy, very smart guy, a very dark guy, like Dave Atell said.
One of the things that, some of the comedians had said that we spoke to was that Bill kind of taught them, some of the younger guys coming up, that you shouldn't be afraid to walk the room. Like, you're going out there with your material, and that if they are not getting it and that you don't feel like you want to change and make them happy, then do what you want to do and be prepared to have them leave.
Well, that's easy for him to say, but if you're an up and coming guy, if you're not getting the job done, then you don't get ass backed.
That was before Twitter. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
People walked out, they went out into their rest of their lives. Now, it never ends.
And Hicks, though, the thing with Hicks, though, and I'm not even a guy who followed Hicks, but I like the fact that I think when he would walk a room, at least it was sincere. Like, people who've seen Hicks a million, they said that he was just doing his act. And people didn't like it, they were offended by the religious stuff. When you see guys trying to walk the room, they're trying to emulate Hicks, and it doesn't come off as genuine. But I think the fact that he would walk them with his act is important. It's a big difference.
I'm a huge fan of Bill Hicks, but huge fan of comedy in general. Love these guys and all. Bill Hicks was one of those guys I never got to see.
Well,
really?
Yeah, just on fucking tape, and his comedy CDs.
I just wanted to say, the second time I met him, since thanks for that follow-up. No, the second time I met him was after another show where once again the crowd didn't get him, and I don't know if people knows about Bill Hicks, but he was a master guitar player. He's from Texas, and I guess it's something in the water down there. But he was just an amazing guitar player, and we were hanging out at a guy's house, everybody smoking pot, and he's like, "Hey, is that a guitar?" He was sober at this point, and he's like, "Can I use that guitar for a second?" And he picks it up, and he's just jamming on the guitar. You're like, oh my! As a young comic, you're like, not only is he a great comic, he's like this otherworldly being. He's so talented, And then he complimented me on one of my jokes. He gave me a tag.
Oh, wow. What was the tag?
He said, put some cream on it. No, he had a great, just comedy mind. So that made me I was floating on air when he was even listened to one of my jokes. But he definitely was the guy who I think a lot of these people, like Jim said, they emulate. They want to be him. But I don't think they have the same rage and anger. And they also don't have the same street cred that he did. Because he worked a lot of... are you allowed to curse again?
Yeah.
He worked some of the shittiest B-room club, hardcore, Alabama, whatever, Shreveport, just basically down and dirty beer hall kind of places. A lot of these other guys who were, supposedly these, truth-telling, comics, storyteller people, they work L.A., they work here, they work South by Southwest, they work 3 or 4 different places. And, he was definitely out there for years and years and years with people talk about the crowd walking the crowd. The crowd was viciously angry. They wanted to fight him after every show. So
yeah.
And it's there's a guy who speaks there's a truth to power, It's what a lot of guys today don't realize. is the things that were considered rebellious a lot of times when Bill was doing them, which is, I guess, in what, the late 70s, early 80s, when he was, you know, when did he perform? What were his years of performing?
He made it into the 90s.
Early 90s, yeah.
But you the guys who made the movie, right?
That's us.
Yeah,
cool.
Okay.
They're not necessarily the same things that are rebellious today. So a lot of guys are like they do the type of stuff Bill did, but it's like they're like you said, it's not real. Their rage. It's just they're trying to like manufacture what a guy like that created.
It's weird. He's been gone a while now, and his stuff isn't dated. You could put on his comedy CDs, and it makes sense with what's going on in the world today.
We get a lot of that. We get that a lot of people come in contact with us and say we didn't know he was dead.
Oh, really?
Having just discovered him, like seeing him on YouTube. Where can I go and see this guy?
Now, how did you guys know? Did you guys know him, or how did you get involved with this project? It's called American the Bill Hicks story.
Well, yeah. I mean, as you can tell, we're a couple of Brits by our plummy accents, and as you might know, Bill was really, really big in the UK.
Yeah.
He got huge in Britain, and kind of frustrated he wasn't as big in America.
But he also did very well in Canada. Obviously, his breakout performance was at Montreal Just for Laughs in '91, and then in Australia he did a very big tour over there. So there are certain places that he's really well known, and obviously in places like Austin over here in the US, where you've got big followings.
A question for the room, not just you guys. Why do you think he didn't get big in America?
Because we suck over here. We don't appreciate anything until we.
He obviously had his following, but I mean, he was selling out. He was selling out theaters, and in this movie, you talk about it, where he'd come back from selling out theaters all over Europe, and then come home to, like Dave said, to these shitty comedy clubs.
But at that time, we'd had that kind of, not Bill's kind of comedy, but we'd had, alternative comedy on TV for several years by then. And it was just kind of a different climate. Also, because the UK is much smaller, if someone's a big splash at the Edinburgh Comedy Festival, where Bill first appeared, then the whole country gets to hear about it.
Right.
Whereas the States is so huge that, these guys were really well known in Houston, but weren't known in New York or LA.
Now, were you guys hired to do this project, or was your idea? Walk us through this a little bit.
Yeah, we developed it. I mean, basically, we were lucky enough on the 10th anniversary of Bill's death to have some contact with his family. So basically there were tribute nights going on around the world, which is kind of unprecedented if you think about it. I mean, I don't know many other comedians who have tribute nights for them, but we were doing the London one. We got in touch with Bill's family.
We certainly will have one for Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
we just had one for Greg Giraldo.
Yeah.
Giraldo
was a great comic, man.
You guys know Greg?
A great one.
And so what happened was that we put
Did you guys know Greg or no?
No, we didn't.
Oh, they didn't.
We saw Greg when we did a movie preview at the Gotham a few years ago. I met Greg.
Oh, right, okay.
He was a pretty bright fucking comic, man. I liked him.
I have a question.
Yeah.
England, you brought it up. It was so true that we usually don't get how good something is until it goes. He basically. I remember when he went to England for the first time, Bill Hicks, and he. That's when all the great reviews started coming out, when you guys finally, kind of saw the genius in it. And I think a lot of it had to do with you guys were cooler with the rage that he really had against the government and society and commercialism and all that kind of stuff. And I guess the guy who I always consider the kind of heir apparent to Bill would be Doug Stanhope, and I know he's also very big in England. So
I think he's over there now touring.
Is Doug big in England?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he plays the Leicester Square Theatre quite often, which is a big room, and he gets invited back a lot because he has that same fire. I think he has that same commitment, which maybe means that you're not always knocking out one-liners every sort of 2 or 3 minutes. That you're actually exploring a subject and you're not afraid to go there. And I think that's why people respond to him.
Sure,
they like me too, because I'm very angry about game shows and things like that.
Well, I'm just basically. Well, it's amazing how we send over these amazing comics, and then you guys send over these guys to do these movies that. These Katherine Heigl, whatchamacallit, Seth Rogen-y movies, and we watch them on planes going towards your country. You know what I'm saying? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, basically it's not fair.
We're sorry.
All right, so
I thought I could start a nice.
Yeah, I know.
So too good.
So you ran into the family at a 10-year death reunion thing.
Well, the family were obviously over in the States, but that was our first contact with them, and then we spent a couple of years not only getting to know them and trying to gain their trust, but and to prove that we were the right guys to make the film, but also exploring how we were going to put it together, because as you said, Bill wasn't someone who would maybe get money thrown at a project about him over in the States, and that's kind of why it came from the UK.
Yeah, I wanted to see this movie for a while because I heard about it, and I was like, how are they going to pull this off? Because there's not a lot of video of Bill Hicks. I mean, there's a lot of performance video, obviously.
A lot
but
of great specials, though.
Yeah, but not him just hanging out. If you're doing a documentary, you don't have him, just chilling. So you guys made it work by doing a lot with pictures, photographs. You want to explain that a little bit? I mean, where you got the idea?
Well, when we first got to know the family and did some research, there were just so many photographs of Bill. He'd collected a lot through his career. He'd kept all of those, VHS tapes from the comedy clubs, but also just photos from friends and photo shoots. And they kind of just showed the picture. Because the thing about Bill is he evolved so much through his life, and you can see that going from, the young colt.
Right.
Through several stages in his life. And we'd seen this film called Kid Stays in the Picture, which had kind of done a bit of 3D photography.
Yeah, that was a good film, man.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film.
Yeah.
And what it does is it takes you into that world. You're not watching talking heads on a screen cut with clips. You go back into that world.
Right.
But we realised you could take it a lot further and rebuild the real locations. So that's Bill's real childhood home when they're sneaking out to go down to the comedy club against their parents' permission. And then we rebuilt the comedy club where Bill and the other comics in Houston used to perform.
What was it called,
the club? The Comics Annex, which was part of the comedy workshop there.
Did you do any of the Laugh Stop? Any of those clubs like that? Because Houston, it was a really huge comedy town. The did you guys talk about this? The Texas Dozen, Jimmy Pineapple.
The Texas Outlaw Comics.
They're all featured in the film.
And, and Riley Barber and all those. Did you talk to all of them?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great.
John Farnetti is actually in town tonight for our premiere tomorrow. And obviously Jimmy Pineapple, now James Lamoureux, and Andy Huggins. They were kind of the guys who
He'll always be known as Jimmy Pineapple to me.
Yeah, sure.
Esquire, by the way.
James Pineapple Esquire. Yeah,
yes.
no, you're right. But what the great thing about those guys was that they kind of, they got to Bill at the right age. He was 17 or 18. He walks into this comedy club and he finds them, and they basically bring him on as a performer, and they also teach him about drinking and drugs and girls as well. But they taught him about what it meant to be a performer, and what that entailed was, being true to who you were as a person and not being afraid to go and explore topics that were interesting. And so he met them at the right time. They kind of nurtured him and brought him along, and they were lifelong friends.
And he hit right at 17 and 18. He was killing.
He was a killer act. He definitely. I saw him one time at the not at the Cafe Wa in New York, but used to be like on like where Dylan
Village Underground.
The Village Underground one time, and he was shooting a special there, and the crowd didn't get him because I think it was like salsa night, and then he came out. It was really like one of those weird kind of situations, and like. They weren't getting him, and he was shooting a special, and this was like, I guess, just like something they threw together, and he immediately like went from like, I'm doing the prepared material to rage, which I love, and he just had so many great like quick one-liners just from his many years of road stuff, which separates him immediately from these alternative comics, which is like I think a lot of them don't have that like kind of road like able to work a situation, it's like it's a performance art thing. But he was like a comic, in his soul, so he could definitely handle it. But I'm glad that you guys are doing this because he definitely is underrated, and he's also as more important in comedy than a lot of people think.
I mean, you could tell us this though. I mean, a lot of comedians, as I understand it, like look at other comics up on the stage and say that they can see how many hours they've done, they can see how many nights just by how crafted they are, And obviously, Bill was doing like 207 when he was sober. And he was working all the time. He was doing 275 nights a year. Jeez. And so you look at the guy up on stage and you just can see his mastery of an audience. You can see his comfortableness there. You can see his craft. And also the one-liners and the put-downs are part of that too. But it's about the ability to kind of like move around any subject matter that you want and like just sort of pull it all together.
Was there other Bill Hicks guys at the time, Dave? Or was he like one of the only, you know what I mean? Not...
It was Bill Hicks, let's see, Bob Zaney.
But were there any other guys that were kind of going dark when Bill Hicks was doing it?
Kinnison was fairly dark.
Kinnison was?
Yeah.
And they were both in Houston at the same time, right?
Yeah, they were actually mentor. Sam was, sort of almost a mentor to Bill at a younger age.
He used to perform with him, didn't he?
It seems like Sam might have bit off Bill Hicks.
Well, that's a good question, but I never got to see Sam live, but I've seen Bill live.
Sam live. Holy shit!
I never got to see it, and the more I do comedy, the more I realize that's the reason why you get into comedy, which is what Sam Kinison was doing, which not the later time with the rock and roll with the ever, but when he was like before all the celebrity hit, he was like there was nobody who brought that much energy, but both high and low on stage the way he did it. He was an imposing figure, but yet everybody walked out of there, even if he was screaming in their face, they still felt like they had a great time. They were light. They didn't feel, like it was like a horrible experience. But he was an amazing performer. So I think he also is another guy who is underrated, and I think a lot of it had to do with like the drugs and like, partying and the rock star lifestyle.
Who did he work with? It was Kinnison, and he worked. I know Hicks was one of his guys, and he used to tour. When I saw Sam, he toured with Alan Stevens Stevens, Carl LeBeau, and Mitch Walters, I think, were the three guys
was
in
one
front
of the guys, too.
Oh, was Jimmy one of those guys? Okay.
I believe so. He was one of the Outlaws.
With Kinnison?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
when
see
he's doing the
ago.
amphitheater, when he's doing the big tours, you know.
Okay.
But like when you see him, like supposedly, like I never got to see him. You know, the guy I asked would be like Mark Maron, because he like basically lived with those guys out in L.A. in the early '80s. But when he would hit the Comedy Store in the early '80s, he just ruled the place, and that was a really great place for like a lot of these young guys. When I was doing comedy in the beginning, the wave of comedy was over, like the really cool wave. So it was a lot of people trying to be like the sweater comics, you know, the Skip Stevensons and the whatever, like the have you ever thought about, and a lot of lame ass observational stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's why Bill Hicks was definitely the standout, and Letterman got it. They got it right away, but then I always feel like it's sad that like he didn't get a chance to like, he should have been on there like more than he was, you know, like every couple of weeks, every couple of months or whatever. He should have been a panel guest, and you know we really would have gotten here.
I think they found the process of vetting, which obviously they do on those shows, and you know the producer will go out, see the act 2 or 3 times, take out jokes they don't like. I think that Bill found that uncomfortable sometimes, and
it's horrible.
He had to go through it obviously to get on the show, and then obviously you know on the 12th appearance, so he was on 11 times, and the 12th appearance, which was about 3-4 months before he died, was the one which was, you know, sort of famously canned.
And then Letterman regretted that, but I don't like the fact he waited 25 years to play it.
And then he dramatically played it. Like, we should have played this a long time ago. We're playing it tonight.
The day after Hicks died, they should have played that out of respect.
Bill's mom was there. Dave made a whole thing about it, so he did him make good, I guess.
What was it, religious stuff or something? Whatever the material was that.
What was the big problem?
They told him not to do something. What was it?
It wasn't Billy Ray Cyrus, was it?
There was a couple of things, I think. One was kind of the sort of the nastiness of the perceived nastiness of offering to kill someone with a shotgun, and you know who maybe was beloved at the time. Yeah. And then the other stuff was some apparently you know religious stuff about the Pope or pro-life. So you know there was a couple of, they described them as hot button topics.
Right.
And you know it's the kind of thing that I think that you know maybe they wouldn't you know think twice about today, as Dave said when he showed the clip.
That's America. That's how we
said,
are.
You know,
they're still fucking with comics.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, you can look at these guys; they have their own stories. So
no, they definitely vet your set, and they do have a lot of topics they don't want you to talk about. And I don't know if that's true in England on your chat shows or whatever, but over here, like you really have to like you know. It's basically you do the material they tell you to do.
I think one of the reasons that Bill thought that he went over so well in the UK, you were asking about that earlier, was that you know he was able to do, after this Montreal set was filmed, they played it unedited on Channel 4, an hour and 10 minutes, and there was only 4 channels in the UK at that time.
Wow.
And basically, you know, a really good proportion of the country just hooked into him, and rarer and rarer nowadays, it was a water cooler moment. People next day were saying, "Did you see that guy?"
Right.
And it really was a sort of a consciousness attaining performance.
Sure.
And I think that one of the things that you know he was lucky to do, as Paul was saying, was, you know, hitting Channel 4 at the right time, where they were looking for people to push the boundaries. They were looking for people who, you know, didn't give a shit about profanity, and that they were interested in someone who was really going to blow the socks off their audience, and that's what Bill did at just the right time.
The vetting process is different over there as well, and you can pretty much do what you want on the show, and they then look who complains afterwards. Mm-hmm. So the show don't decide so much, and then over time.
It's called balls.
Yeah, no kidding. American the Bill Hicks story. I really enjoyed this damn documentary you guys made. It's well done. These guys did a great job at the pictures and stuff.
They handed us these cards, by the way. Did you?
I thought it was a menu.
What is this?
Well, this is a Bill Hicks menu for the soul.
It's called Bill Hicks's Principles of Comedy.
Well, this is sorry, you don't have one. Let me chuck one out.
Let me see this.
It's printed out and posted by Bill on the wall at the Laughing Skull in Atlanta. Is that around still or no?
Oh. That's still there, yes.
The Laughing
Still
Skull?
a club, yes.
Oh, by the way, that's the best thing when you go to comedy clubs. Like I'm going to Raleigh, they have all the great old headshots. And Bill, like, he started when he was like 15 or something like that. So he's got like the baby headshot, then he's got like the bad boy headshot. But his every time I see it, I always give it a little tap because he is great.
The amazing thing for us though, coming over here as 2 Brits, is obviously we've got this film that we think people should know about who Bill is, and that he's somebody who's important in terms of like the American cultural timeline. What we've been amazed by is how the American comedian immediate community has come out to support the film. So we're working here in New York with Gotham, with Eastville, with the Upright Citizens Brigade. In LA, we're doing a screening for the comics only at the Comedy Store, which is going to be amazing. And then we have Paul Provonza, who's going to be hosting our premiere in LA. And then the next night, Bob Weed, director of Curb Your Enthusiasm. The next night, Colin Hanks. So we have some really nice people coming out to support the film and essentially showing that they do know who Bill was and that they feel that other people should know who the hell he was too.
What's the Tool connection with Maynard? You didn't really get into that with the film.
Bill and Maynard were friends, and
how did they meet?
I don't know, actually, but I do remember a gag that Bill did. He opened for Tool a couple of times, and one of them was he said he'd lost his contact lens in the mosh pit. Can anyone have a look for it? But the idea, I think, was that they just found each other interesting, and so, Tool asked Bill to support them on a tour, and he managed to do a couple of gigs, but not a full tour.
Tool really loves Bill Hicks.
Yeah, and obviously they featured him on, I think, 3 songs on their album.
3 of their songs are basically Bill Hicks's routine.
What's the how do you say that one?
Music. Arizona Bay?
No. The other one. Anemia?
Anemia?
Anemia.
Oh, is it Anemia's name of the song? Or no, I don't think it's Anemia, is it?
That's the album, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That fucking album's great. And there's a lot of Bill Hicks featured on that damn thing.
Not to backtrack, but when you're talking about the Montreal Comedy Festival, that's where he broke. The only other guy ever to break as hard would have been Mitch Hedberg. Because he was another guy who left Montreal with just like raves, and well deservedly. And he also, in my experience, he mastered the Letterman spot better than anybody else, because that is a hard thing. Jim knows it, like doing like a 6-minute set, like we said, it's vetted, it's prepared, and like his material is so clean but so different that like just every joke blew the audience away. So
well, Opie's seen the film. Basically one of the things that runs throughout the film is that idea about what it means to be a comedian, and part of that is choices that you make about what you do with your material, and whether you're able to do a 5-minute clean spot and whether that makes you happy or not.
Right.
And obviously some people like Bill just were not considered 5-minute comics by himself, and said, well, okay, I need to work longer form, and how do I do that? And if TV is not going to let me, then that's the way that's going to be.
Yeah, but he still was great in the short form because he had great jokes. He had amazing jokes. And when you watch him on the Young Comedian special, he held his own. Unfortunately, that was like the special I'm talking about, Rodney Dangerfield's.
Yeah, Nothing Goes Right.
And who else was on that special? Because that's like a
Dice Clay.
Dice Clay, and
was Hicks on Dice's special? I didn't know that.
And they
on
also,
the same night?
Wow. Schimmel,
Barry
another great comic.
Was Barry Sobel on that one? Too. There was another guy with a leather jacket, and I remember that Dice argued with him because Dice wanted to wear the leather. There was one guy after him.
Maybe Don Marrera too.
Wow,
I don't remember.
I would love to see that lineup.
See if someone can look it up.
Can you look up that lineup?
You're probably right.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
The thing that was really upsetting to Bill, though, was that obviously he'd gone on and thought he had his big break, and obviously Dice Clay comes out with the rude limericks, and he got all the praise and all the attention after that special, and Bill thought it was his big break and that he was going to go big, and it just he got eclipsed on that night.
Well, I think the cool thing about it is who has the last laugh, huh? And who does?
Probably Dice is still alive.
But that was so sad because people thought Bill Hicks, like, I always thought he was way older than me. But he was only like a couple years older than me. He died when he's 32, which is like really, it was like just as he was hit. It is a great topic for a movie that's well overdue.
I think the interesting thing is that, we've been speaking to a lot of people, for example, John Lahr from the New Yorker magazine, who's written really nicely about Bill, and, he considers Bill to be the direct antecedent of people like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, who are now doing that kind of material, but actually finding an audience on TV. And I think the thing that's most interesting about it is that, you have the ability to get an audience thinking about, not just political stuff, but satirical stuff, and you're doing it now on a nightly basis to 2-3 million people, and that's something that at the time Bill was actually up for political correctness, like Bill Maher's first TV show. So at that time, he was almost in one of those chairs.
Who did he look up to, Bill Hicks? Who was his guy? I'm going to guess Carlin. Who were his guys who he admired?
Woody Allen.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he went all the way back to Chaplin.
Really?
And then he was obviously very enamoured of Richard Pryor when he saw the Live on Sunset Strip. Kind of really blew him away.
How could he not be?
And
that's one of the best specials ever.
No, I think Live in Concert was better. Sunset Strip was after he burned himself.
Yeah, but that still was really good.
It was very deep.
Cool, man.
When he stopped saying nigger, that was like when he kind of made the proclamation. I believe me, I wrote him. You should say it more. But that's when he kind of said he would never say that again, and he had like an epiphany, I guess.
And then, but don't you think that like the crowds now are so politically correct that like I think they still wouldn't really get him, Bill Hicks. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on the actual like doing and seeing of comedy, but I think people really just they don't want to hear, they just want silliness and whatever personal bullshit. I don't know. What do you think, Jim?
I think a lot of things that, like, what is considered really going against the grain has changed a little in the last 15 or, like, it's a lot, you can make fun of the church a lot safer now. It's not as big a deal anymore, which they've kind of brought on themselves. Mm-hmm. And a lot of guys today are attacking the church like it's this act of rebellion. And it's like, it's really not. It's a bit different now if you're attacking Islam, or if you're going after race. Those are things that are very taboo today, which may not have been at one point. So I don't know how he would do now, but he probably would have switched gears and attacked other things.
But he was from the South, okay, so he grew up in that culture, and then he would play these clubs, like I said. Like, it's easy to do a church joke at Largo in L.A., but to do it in, like, some casino riverboat in Mississippi, I mean, like, that's real danger. That's really, like, edgy, like, I believe in this, and I don't give a shit about the crowd.
And 20 years ago, it was definitely a lot more dangerous than it is now, even. I mean, 20 years ago to be doing, because again, he wasn't a guy who needed, I know there was no alternative clubs back then. Yeah. It's like guys who did that type of material back then just did it in front of comedy audiences. It's like there was no, I need my own crowd here. It's like Andy Kaufman. He didn't do it in front of a hip alternative crowd that would pretend they liked it, whether they did or not. He did it in front of fucking, Catch a Rising Star audiences who thought he was a fucking an idiot.
Yeah, let me go to the phones. We got Terry in Erie, Pennsylvania. We're talking about the Bill Hicks documentary. It's called American. When is this being released, guys?
It's opening in New York, Cinema Village tomorrow, and it's going to be out in LA and then the rest of the country from the 15th, so please check it out.
Right on. Terry, what do you got?
Hey, good morning, boys.
Good morning.
I know Bill and Dennis Leary were feuding for a little while over material. Did they ever wind up patching things up before Bill passed away, or...?
I believe that the Leary situation is something that comes up a lot because we get asked about it in terms of like, did they, didn't they? And I think it's one of those things that is kind of, between them in some ways. Whether they patched up or not, we don't know.
Well,
but I think people do know that Bill's a little upset about it.
Yeah, obviously Bill Hicks came out with his album way before Dennis Leary, and there's a lot of similar material, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, one of the things that comedians, some comedians are known for doing, people like Robin Williams, as I understand it, were quite cool with like people borrowing bits off each other and stuff. But I think the recording it and the putting it down on an album, that's the bit that kind of hurt.
Right.
And also the fact that it sold 1 million copies and, got Dennis Leary massive MTV viewership.
Sure.
When Bill was still playing the clubs. So, it hurt.
Did you try to interview Dennis?
No.
You didn't?
Well, I would have tried to interview him about it. Why not?
Well, I guess because the way that the film came about was that we went to go and see Bill's family and friends, and the interviewees that we got like really told the story, and it was kind of about the person behind the performer.
Now Bill's dad is no longer with us, but the mom's still around. What does she have to say about Dennis Leary?
Well, you can meet us. She's coming into town tomorrow night for the show.
Oh, cool. Does she talk about the Dennis thing?
Not really. Steve, his brother, mentions it a bit, but as well, this far on, how much would Bill really be worried about that sort of thing? Unless Dennis was still copying him now.
Right. Well,
although Steve did tell that cool joke when we were here in Gotham like 3 years ago. It was like, why does Dennis Leary have a career? Because there's no cure for cancer.
That's funny.
And Steve told that, and the audience went, whoa! And it was like, well, no. He was kind of being funny. I think they thought he was like making a dig. He wasn't. He was just like joking about it. Steve's Bill's brother. Steve Hicks.
Who did they think he was making a dig at?
Well, I think they thought he was like making some sort of like weird cancer reference. And
but if he was, it's his brother. How about they let him do it? This is why audiences should be fucking executed.
That's a great line, by the way.
It's a funny line.
Yeah.
Hicks was a very fucking edgy guy, and his brother does a cancer joke, and they're like, oh, that's not polite. Like, the crowds just stink.
What? And they're there to tribute the guy.
The guy who...
They should know that. Yeah.
And shitheads.
Sorry, we apologize for
And Steve doesn't do comedy, right?
No, he was just up there, as part of the tribute.
It's pretty obvious in your film that he didn't really, he doesn't have the funny bone, Steve.
He's actually pretty good on stage.
It must suck to have a brother that's just so fucking smart and funny.
The competition in the family would have been, tough, I would say.
What does Steve do for a living?
Well, he used to work for a company that basically marketed bands. He was like, what was the name of that company he worked for? It was like the big record store across Austin. Right. He's now working in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
There you go. Let me say hi to Jonathan in Detroit. Jonathan.
Hey, how are you doing?
Welcome aboard.
Just wanted to let you know there are 4 songs actually that Tool did that's related to Bill Hicks. It's called Third Eye. Mm-hmm. At the end of it, kind of some trippy music where he's doing his stand-up. Eulogy. Mm-hmm. Hooker with the Penis. And the CD is actually called Enema.
Yeah, the album's Enema. We fucked that up.
Thank you.
Wow.
All right. Thank you.
But that was the set that got him banned. I remember there was two bits that they didn't want to play. One of them was like, we have to kill. It was like some country western guy. No, he's like, no, I want you to go out there tonight, and he's on TV doing a TV set, and hunt him down and kill him. Let's turn this into a game show. I'm going to hunt blah blah.
Billy
blah.
Ray Cyrus.
It was Billy
Cyrus. I'm almost positive.
It was Billy Ray Cyrus. Definitely.
So that was like definitely one of them. And
I almost agree with them on that one. It's like,
right.
well, you know, you're gonna get the guy fucking sued.
And here's the classic joke: when you remember, like when all these reality TV shows came out, like Eliminate and all that kind of stuff, which is like, if you're on TV desperately trying to get a joke, just stay home and masturbate. And that's like when the standards were like, whoa, can you say masturbate on American television? Right. I don't know, on English television you probably can say that.
Yeah, I think you can say wank.
Wank, diddle, diddle the governor. There's a lot of euphemisms over there.
Bill Hicks principles. I'm going to read one of these.
Okay.
Principles of comedy. Number 1. There's 12. This is the first one. If you can be yourself on stage, nobody else can be you, and you have the law of supply and demand covered.
Wow.
So I don't agree with that. I like to just emulate others.
Do you?
Who have you chosen?
Just a few local guys. This is what an unfunny guy I am. I couldn't think of one guy to mention, so I just said local guys.
What about the Shucky guy?
Shucky ducky quack quack.
Shucky ducky quack quack. Hey, so when Bill got sick, he was gone within less than a year, right?
He was diagnosed in June, and he was gone by February the following year.
What kind of cancer did he have?
June to February.
Oh, pancreas is horrible.
Yeah.
And it was stage 4, I believe, when it was diagnosed. But it's an old man's disease. He was 32.
8 months.
I don't think.
But he had it in his family, and he also the coolest thing about it is, I know a little bit about him too. Sorry, fellas.
I love that you're here today, Dave. I didn't even know.
They're smirking at me. Yeah. You weren't sitting in a Red Roof Inn somewhere researching him. Anyway, he started smoking again once because he had quit, and then he started smoking again.
Said fuck it.
Yeah.
Pancreatic stage 4, you're fucking doomed. There's nothing you can do.
But at the same time, Bill did actually felt that he might pull through, and that he kind of saw it. He called it his wake-up call, not his death bell. And basically, as I'm sure Dave knows, went on and recorded another 2 albums after he was diagnosed. So Arizona Bay and Rantini Minor were both released posthumously after being engineered by Kevin Booth, and were recorded in the last 4 months of his life.
Wow.
So he just turned the motor up.
And he performed right to the end, right?
That's right. The last gig at Caroline's, right?
I heard
he didn't finish, but yes, he was.
I heard the gig at Caroline's is deeply depressing, and like Dave said, he didn't finish.
He didn't finish what, the set or the week?
But everybody I know,
I believe the set.
Yeah.
He had to leave early.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave.
I'm sorry. Everybody I know who was like, I was going to go see him, but I figured I'd see him the next night, and then he canceled, and it was like, damn, it was like the last time, like Elvis. Like,
what was the first? How much time did he do on the last set? Do you know?
He did about 20 minutes, and then he was on a lot of morphine and painkillers at that time. So
he didn't sell any merch. Sorry, Jim.
Jim,
this was before merch. Handshakes, and just backslapping.
Did he tell the audience, like, I just can't go?
He just, as I understand it, said I can't go on, and walked off stage. Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Anyone have tape of that? I'm sure you guys tried to find
there's definitely some tape on that.
There's none.
Well, that's great that you guys.
But the last show that he was recorded doing in its entirety was at a place called Igby's, which is in LA.
Right.
And that was an amazing gig where he essentially kind of summed up not only what he was doing with his career, he announced it when he came on stage. Guys, this is going to be my last gig. You're here at my last ever gig. Maynard from Tool was in the audience, and there's gasps. People are going, no, what do you mean, really? And he just goes on to dissect not only what he's been through over the last 16 years as a comedian, attempting to try and get real, soul and spirit and voice out in America, but also, what the American public have chosen, which is Gallagher and Carrot Top. Mm-hmm. And basically, went off on this idea that audiences really, his big mission was to try and get people to think for themselves, and he felt that a lot of comedians were attempting to stop audiences thinking by distracting them. And essentially what he was doing was attempting to try and get that thinking muscle working.
Did he really name Carrot Top? Poor Carrot Top. He's such a nice guy. It's his last gig and he attacks you.
We've had him on, too. He's He's all right. He makes fun of himself at this point, so. But he's banking.
He looks like a nice person.
Hey, when did he die after that gig? You just explained.
94? That was November of '93, and he died February of '94. Yeah,
3 months later. Jeez.
Rule number 2, or his principle number 2. The act is something you fall back on if you can't think of anything else to say. That's great. I fall back on it a lot.
Well, I hope this movie does well for you guys, man. It was put together very, very, very nicely. I liked it.
I think we're just immensely appreciative that, we've had so many people here in the States come out and say that they really do feel that Bill is somebody who should be remembered and that his work is still relevant. That timeless aspect to what he did means that, he's still, gaining fans now.
Let's get the plugs out there. So the movie American, the Bill Hicks story, release date April 8th in New York, April 15th in LA, and then hopefully you move on from there, right? Start spreading out.
It's going wide to like another 15 cities, and we're also 5 cities in Canada, and we're also available to get online, so you can go and check us out at the website AmericanTheMovie.com.
How cool is that? That's great. Thanks for doing that. As a comic who will never ever be in that league, I appreciate you guys doing this. So
yeah, there you go. Thanks, guys.
Opie, thanks, man.
We're going to continue with Dave Atell, and
how can I follow that?
Well, we got Bill Burr on the phone too.
Okay. What?
We're going to talk about the anti-social tour.
Yes.
These guys are.
We should use
way
these
bigger
guys
than
as
they
like
tell me.
you're like comedy experts, so you can kind of you're like archaeologists or something, like comedy from the beginning and all that kind of stuff.
We know about Bill, and we know about that kind of time period, yeah.
Right. So when did you stop caring about comedy? Like 98? Did you hear about the Blue Collar tour? It really kind of ripped it up for a while. What do you think about those tours? That kind of stuff. Is there something like in English? Is there something like
in London? I mean, it's kind of a different scene, isn't it?
Yeah, no, there's nothing like that at all in the UK. I mean, and comedy's still just as strong there as it ever was.
We had like Lee Evans and fucking Billy Connolly, and one other guy will do the Wembley.
Rich Hall is big.
But we lose a lot of our good guys to you. I mean, obviously, you have people like Eddie Izzard and Russell Brand and Ricky Gervais, probably the 3 most successful stand-ups of the last sort of 5-10 years, and have all come over here, as you can see, making movies big time.
Now, I know Eddie did a comedy for a while, or did he do a lot of comedy? But Ricky and Russell, did they really do stand-up like the way we do it here? I mean, did they tour Sussex and, of course, Yorkshire and the debated Isle of Wight?
Leicestershire. And Leicestershire. Yeah.
Leicestershire.
Yeah. Russell Brand did.
Russell, did you? Eddie used to run his own comedy club.
I was just curious because I never knew what the road was like over there. What do you guys do?
Well, I think Eddie Izzard started out doing the Covent Garden kind of street performing stuff, and before he went on to do TV. But
here we have the Olive Garden.
What do you think?
Sorry, guys.
We don't understand that reference. But the thing that I think that Ricky Gervais upset a lot of people about was that he came on having not done any stand up at all, and immediately was selling out. And huge, and was widely thought to be great.
His stand-up,
I think he upset a lot of comics.
He's a good comic as far as his stand-up is.
I like his stand-up.
His performance is very natural. He's himself, but the material, is very. It's something you would the concept is something you would do very early, the nursery rhymes, breaking down what was the fucking egg-headed one? The guy on the wall,
Humpty.
Yeah, Humpty. You know what I mean? It was. Like that. I think his performance to me was what was very impressive as opposed to the material.
He's very charming.
But Ricky came from the radio, so Ricky had done hundreds of hours on the radio.
Yeah.
That's where he came
from.
So does Jim.
Yeah. What about Jim Norton?
And he
also known as Jim Norton.
Yeah, Jim Norton. David Brent is the best character ever on a television show is David Brent.
Who is he?
It's Gervais in the original Office.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You've never seen the original Office?
No.
Dude, it really.
I don't really watch the other one either.
I don't
worry about the American
new one annoys me.
Although I must admit, when the American one came over, we were kind of ready to hate it, and it's actually pretty good. I mean, you guys over here are able to do something which we don't seem to be able to do in the UK, which is to get a series that runs for 8-10 series.
I liked it for the first 2 or 3, and then I've tapped out a long time ago.
Does it throw you off when you see our TV? I'm sorry to interrupt, but and you see all those commercials that we have in the middle of it? Does that throw you guys off when you watch American television?
No, we love commercials, man. We buy stuff.
Okay.
All right. We're going to take a break. Guys, thank you so much
shortly
for stopping by. American, the Bill Hicks story.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to continue with Dave Atell, and Bill Burr is on the phone. Stay there.
Robin.